Good evening, campers, dreamers, and babysitters, and welcome to a little special treat to kick off December to Dismember here. Yes, we kind of, this was not planned. This was not initially part of the big four-way here. So you may hear another intro in another video as things go on here. But we got the special treat and privilege, I guess you could say, to talk to Stephen Lamorte, the director of The Mean One, which we just reviewed this past weekend. Our review is up right now. You guys have been really responding to that, so we appreciate it deeply. We just finished talking to him. We talked for almost an hour. The dude is just a stand-up guy, a gentleman all the way around. And Luke, how'd you feel about that? That was a pretty fun experience.
No, yeah, this was a really interesting and in-depth interview. Sometimes when you acquire interviews, even when you don't even anticipate them, sometimes you get a brief time constraint to say, oh, you get 10 or 15 minutes. He was very hospitable when, as long as we asked the questions, he answered all of them. Very nice gentleman.
Hmm.
You can tell he has a love for horror. Very creative as well. So I mean, absolute pleasure to actually be able to pick his brain for a little bit and get clarification on some of the things that maybe we didn't pick up necessarily on an original viewing of the Mean One. So I don't know. I think this was an interesting interview. Hell of a guy. Real pleasure. 100%. What a way to kick off December to Dismember.
I know. It was crazy. I mean, we initially had reached out to see if we could grab a screener. Our little channel here has been gaining some traction. So, I always, behind the scenes for you guys, I'm always swinging for the fences. Luke and I both here with, we can get an email address, we can get an Instagram direct message out to somebody in this horror space. We take a stab at it. Most of the time, we don't get a response, but that is to be expected. But no, Steven and his team got back to us. They were like, yeah, things have been crazy. We couldn't get a screener to you guys, but hey, we'd love it if you guys could do an interview with the director. So obviously, we're going to be like, holy crap, that's a wonderful privilege. I mean, we're talking to somebody who is on the ground making this film, from the ground up. And like I said, real stand-up guy, gives a wonderful interview. And yeah, I mean, definitely offers some clarification to us, because it's like, we're not going to jerk you guys around. If you've seen our review, you know how he felt. So we asked a couple of harder hitting questions, and the guy answered them, gave them to us. And I don't know. I mean, I'm actually intrigued to maybe go back and check this thing out again, not only to support it, but also, just to kind of recalibrate and say, okay, did we come at this from the angle that maybe we shouldn't have? Is this something that we kind of maybe went in expecting one thing and came out like with a totally different one? I don't know.
Yeah.
We may have to re-rack that review as we go down the road here. But till then, there's a lot of great nuggets in here. There's a lot of really great pieces as far as if you want to learn how to, not necessarily get films off the ground, but if you want a little bit of that behind the scenes of how they got this film made, where the ideas stem from, and just in general, like what happened in the 6 months it took to make this movie. And
What,
then
6 months? My gosh,
I
didn't even
know
know that
that
until
was
he mentioned it.
insane.
And what a
But yeah,
turnaround to even get that out and even a theatrical release like it's getting limited, but it's just like to even have that happen in a 6 month period is just a wow, and it's like I think that's an accomplishment in itself in the horror community to be like, we made this and we're bringing it out to the folks to check it out and hopefully you like it, so it's like one of those things where I think regardless of if you go and see this and it doesn't resonate with you, you have to respect this film. And that's why
oh
it's
yeah,
like um to have, him a part of the horror community and making content, he's got my vote 100% anytime he releases something because I mean, he's in the camp.
absolutely. And just hearing the passion and where he came from and just all the projects we do talk about, it's like I can't wait to see what comes next for this gentleman here. So without further ado, we've talked plenty here. let's just pass it off to the interview. Enjoy. Definitely let us know down below what you guys thought. If you have any questions for him as well, feel free to drop them in there. And of course, if you're new to the channel and you're just stumbling across us, please hit that subscribe button. And yeah, here we go. Alrighty, so let's get things started here. Obviously, the man of the hour is with us, Stephen Lamorte. So thank you for joining us. And yeah, I mean, we got to check this film out. We were just talking about it a little bit before. About I think was it last Friday? Yeah, when it hit, we went up there, took a drive out to go see it. Definitely wanted to support it. You know, our review is up on the channel if you guys want to check it out right now. But yeah, I know you probably can't give away specifics, but what's the kind of how's the film been doing from your guys' perspective? Everybody really seemed to be taking well to it, and you guys having a good time, I guess, from the cast experience and everything.
Oh, we're having a blast. I mean, this film is a complete labor of love. I mean, we are a tiny micro budget movie. You know, so like the true independent, you know, it's a handful of my friends. Our crew's maybe like 15 or so. A lot of people helped out and contributed locations and props and wardrobe and let us film in their backyard and all kinds of stuff like that. But, you know, this film is just a crazy idea that I've had, and for reasons that still escape me, you know, it just keeps growing and growing. And now to have it be in theaters and have people all over the country be able to see it is unbelievable. It's fantastic. I mean, we don't even have a Terrifier 2 budget. We've got Terrifier 1 budget. That's how small and minuscule and like tiny this little grassroots effort's been. And now to be playing the big stage, as they say, it's nuts. So we're thrilled. We're super happy.
That's awesome. I'm really happy to hear that. Of course, we're big supporters of indie filmmaking, indie horror on the channel. So, you know, when a project like this hits theaters, you know, we're always encouraging people to go try to seek it out. You know, obviously, we got some news about the folks over at Shudder having to lay some people off, which was unfortunate. So anytime we can get people with, you know, streaming services, any way we can support it, that's kind of what our channel revolves around. And so one of the things I wanted to ask you to kind of start off the review or the interview here is just kind of when it comes to The Mean One, what was the spark that kind of got the ball rolling for you on this project? Like, really, where did this start? Like, was this just something that you were, you know, listening to some Christmas music, you know, doing some laundry, whatever, and you were just thinking, you know, I like this thing. I want to maybe expand upon that, because that's kind of where my ideas come from, just doing stuff. And so it just kind of was like, how did that start for you? Where did this all come from?
Well, you know, I definitely used to work in education, first of all. And I don't know if I've ever seen anything as creepy as like a child's drawing, like something about like kids' sketches and artwork and the movies they make. They're weird. They're weird. And, you know, you're like, oh, that's great. A little horrifying, but that's cool. So something about like art geared towards kids is always kind of freaked me out. And then I went to Halloween Horror Nights. Must have been maybe 10 years old or something. And I was strolling through the area where the author of our source material, like all their stuff is, you know, the creepy, twisty, turny, you know, design. And, you know, they really kind of bring that world to life. And it's Halloween Horror Nights. There's smoke. There's colored lights. They didn't have any monsters in there. It was just empty and smoky. And I said, this is the scariest damn thing I have ever seen. I would not want to be in one of these books at night. And that kind of just like sparked my imagination and got my thought on like, okay, well, what are some of these characters? You know, if you ever saw Donald Duck in real life, like he doesn't wear pants. Like that's, you know, like that's weird, you know? So like little things like that kind of spun and spiraled. And, you know, it really became clear if there was a giant Yeti-like ugly tooth having red eye angry monster, would he be singing songs and hugging people? No, he'd be slashing necks and you know, biting faces. And so that's kind of what set me down this path to make a horror parody version of this story.
That's great to hear. Yeah, that's honestly, it's the oddest places where you get some of that inspiration for sure. But I mean, Halloween Horror Nights, like that's definitely a place, if you're in the horror mindset, I could totally see being a massive inspiration for you, just kind of being in that vibe and then that center. Like we're actually based out of Ohio, so we like to brag that Ohio is like the most fitting place for like a slasher film or anything, because you get that perfect small town feel with all the leaves. So every October, like, our brains are just flying and sparking with our little scripts and ideas as we're working through the winter time, just trying to be like, all right, how did we feel at this time, and when we were writing this and everything. So like, yeah, I love hearing stuff like that.
I'm from the East Coast. So I'm originally from New York,
Oh,
and
nice.
my mother lives in Pennsylvania. And because they've got cornfields and the haunts, the haunted houses that they have out there are outrageous. They've got like a full size prison that's like, like in
Yes.
Los Angeles, we have the amusement parks, and there's some cool ones, and I love Not Scary Farm and I love Six Flags, but something about like the haunted houses that are not like name brands haunted houses all across the country, I just love, because you just see things, just people being creative. They're not tied to like an existing franchise. Like, I would love to see the Predator in person. Oh, cool, there's Michael Myers. But when you go to like a jail and they've just like built this amazing set, shout out to Shocktoberfest. They built this amazing set where like, I know I'm in the bathroom and they've got bathroom zombies. I know I'm in the prison yard and they've got prison yard like vampires. Like, just the design of it and the creation, you can't not be inspired. I love it.
Oh, 100%. Luke, you want to take us away with your question there?
Yeah, well, I have a couple just from kind of listening here. Just as like a creative, what would you say is kind of like that process from, having a grain of an idea, and then that process from making it to expanding upon it and saying, okay, I'm going to really make a go of it? Because it's like Dylan said, we have our own ideas and we kind of bounce them off each other, and it's kind of, I don't know. I think being with creatives breeds creativeness, where it's like, I can have a grain of an idea, and then I go to Dylan and I say, this is what I have, and then we kind of workshop it. And then I know you said this is such a small film where it's like 15 people. Do you kind of have that a shoulder to lean on, where it's like, I have this wacky idea, and then I get inspired by it, and then I'm going to go run it past someone to see, how we expand upon it, or can I actually make this into a real kind of thing?
Well, for me, it all kind of comes out of I have like a writing desk and a thinking chair. And I know it's like a weird thing to say, but just something about like getting away from my writing desk doesn't have anything on it, right? It's next to my computer, but just the vibes over there are different, right? My thinking chair, put my legs up and I just sit and I look, and that's really where kind of everything starts. But then, I'm very blessed to live with my fiance, and her office doesn't have a door on it. So I just can go in there and just, throw these good, bad, or otherwise ideas. Hey, Amy, what if the mean one did this? And, and we kind of get get ideas flowing. And then from there, a lot of the times I'll meet with my department heads and we'll just break out Google, and I'll, put together like a lookbook, or I'll watch movies that I think are good references and take screenshots and say, hey, we want it to look like this. Hey, we want it to look like that. I mean, the mean one is filled with references to all of my favorite movies. I mean, you got Psycho in there, you got Jurassic Park in there, you've got lots of other references to the other works of the author. I mean, we've got Halloween. I mean, there's, all kinds of crazy stuff. Friday the 13th with the hand grabbing. I mean, there's just, I love to like incorporate those things into my work. And I find that having those references is an easy way to convey that to people. And then you get, the ball rolling and the ideas start flowing and you go back and forth. And, as a director, I get to say, well, yeah, that's a great idea that you just had, and I'm going to take it and take credit for it. And, thank you for being part of the team. And we always get a good laugh, but no movie is made by yourself. And that's why I love having a team of people I work with all the time, because they get what I'm going for. And, especially with a feature film, once you're shooting every day, we start to get in the vibe of, oh, this movie is smoky, or, oh, this movie is contrasty, or maybe it's soft and the lights twinkle, or, what have you. So it's definitely important that you have collaborators who you can trust and bounce ideas off of, and having those references kind of closes the gap on a conversations a lot quicker.
That's awesome. Yeah. One of the questions that I had for you was with David Howard Thornton being well known in the horror community for a few years now, just from Terrifier itself. What was it like when Terrifier 2 came out and just crushed at the box office, knowing that you now have this icon, like this up and coming slasher icon? Like, we haven't had one in many years, it seems like. I mean, maybe Sam from Trick or Treat could be like the next real guy to throw up there. and you have him in your film. Did that kind of change your guys' strategy at all when it came to post-production and kind of how you wanted to release this film? Because I'm sure just by his reputation alone, it was already one of those things where you guys knew the kind of actor that you had on your hands here, what he was able to bring to it. But then just having this adjacent film, did that affect it at all?
It did a little bit. I went to high school with the guys that produced Terrifier, so I've known I've known him forever, and we've definitely stayed in contact. And they're the ones that connected me to David, and helped with the casting process once I started thinking, because I'd seen the movie and I was like, oh, I wonder if David would be interested in doing something like this, because he looks like perfect once we realized the mean one wasn't going to speak and everything. But it definitely, I had a feeling that I don't want to bet against my friends, but I had a feeling Terrifier 2 was going to be huge. And I said, okay, well, our movie's coming out in Christmas. Terrifier 2 is coming out. He's amazing for the role. I think this is all going to work. And admittedly, there was some pushback from the more traditional distribution outlets, because their idea of a movie star is a household name, right? They want someone who is, oh, well, is he on a TV show right now? Is he Brad Pitt? I'm like, if I had Brad Pitt, I probably wouldn't be talking to you, first of all. But second of all, I think it's relevant to note that this man is amazing, and he's got a rabid fan base, and Terrifier 2 is going to be huge. And once the Terrifier thing popped and started really just going light years beyond their expectations, it did change our marketing, because, and this is something that I think a lot of people don't know because I haven't really said it, but we were never going to show the design of the mean one in the marketing. It was never supposed to be that way. So the film is structured in such a way where, you're meant to think, and you guys have seen it, so I don't think I'm spoiling it, but you're meant to think in the first act that is the creature real? Is the creature not real? Is it in her head? If you've seen the trailer and you've seen the poster and the stills and stuff, well, there he is. He's going to be in the film. But the movie was not written that way. It was never intended to go that route. So because the marketing kind of kicked the legs out from under our story, it's made this weird structural thing where now, the marketing changed because of Terrifier, but it did kind of impact the movie a little bit in terms of, now the structure of the movie probably should have been different, but the movie's already done. So here we are.
That's so interesting, because I totally see that now that you actually mention that, because it's that was one of the things where it was kind of in our review we talked about how it's you do have that build up to the monster, as to where the marketing was kind of like this in your face. They're really showing him to you all the time because the makeup's great. So I mean, you have that luxury of him just looking fantastic. So it's one of those things where it's I completely get why they wanted to do that. But that, I honestly, if I gave that a rewatch, I'd be so curious to watch it with that being kind of in mind now, and kind of seeing that. That's so cool. It's so weird, the cinematic language that is, that is the intent, and then marketing has to come in and do their job too. So it's they don't always respect that. But hey, I get it. You guys got a big name like that in the film, so it's you might as well use it. But yeah, no, that's super cool, man. I like that a lot.
Look, the one thing James Cameron asked on Terminator 2 was, please do not spoil that the Terminator becomes a good guy in the marketing. That's all he asked. And I had seen Terminator 2 after it had come out, so I already knew that he was kind of a good guy. And I remember watching the movie for the first time, and I was like, are we meant to not know that the Terminator, the good Terminator is the good one and the bad one is the bad one? And then I went and I looked it up, and I'm like, oh my God, he must have been furious. That's the twist.
Yeah.
That's the twist, is that this iconic villain is the good guy now. And the marketing just kicked the legs out from under him.
That hallway scene in the mall, man. I remember watching that as a kid too, and just being like, oh my God, what is going to happen right now? Because I was really young seeing Terminator 2. So it was one of those things where I didn't even know who James Cameron was. I was just watching the movie for what it was. And I was just so shocked when I was just he's got these two horrible machines in between him. What are we going to do?
Yeah. So I have now been the victim of that as well. And I'm like, well, that is that changes the movie. Thanks, guys. Or if they, sometimes they cut the trailer to make it look like, M. Night Shyamalan's been the victim of this, where they've cut his trailers and made some of his movies that are definitely thrillers and suspenseful look like horror films. And then you go to see it and you're like, oh, well, this isn't very scary. And it's like, he made the movie he meant to make. You tried to sell it as the wrong thing. So, the marketing does play a factor. Even in a small film, it does play a factor. And, the marketing is pretty separate from the movie. It's just something to be aware of.
Absolutely. And I'll give Luke the floor here in just a second, because I have a quick follow-up for that. Because, just out of curiosity, even for like a smaller micro budget film, it kind of surprises me that you don't see, do you have any kind of oversight with your trailers or anything? They actually do push that off to a marketing team to kind of say, we have to cut this trailer or anything like that? That blows my mind, because I would figure that you guys would have a little bit more of a say, because it's not such at like a monumental studio level where they always are like, nope, you can't touch anything, we're doing this.
Well, it's I'm not trying to talk bad about anybody that's working on the marketing of the movie. I love the trailer. I think they did a great job. And, it's definitely the kind of deal where, at least in my experience on this, because it's from a marketing, it's funny. We make the movie and then we flip the ball over to someone else, and then they're trying to go do big things with it, which is great. But then you're like, oh, we didn't plan for you to do it like that. Oh, okay. Well, I guess it's your show now. So, I mean, I do get, have the ability to consult on some of these things. And, definitely they're like, well, we're going to use our person, but you can give notes and then we'll take them maybe, so it's just a little bit of a balancing act. But I'm super happy with the way the marketing has gone. And,
it's a great trailer. Absolutely. So
yeah,
I would be too.
We're very happy. It did its job and, got people talking about the movie, which is great. And I think somewhere there's some kind of tracking thing that shows who's talking about what, and our buzz level, whatever the hell that is, was really high. So people are aware of the film. It's really just a question of, will people go see it? And a bunch of people saw it this weekend, which is great. We were only really guaranteed to be in theaters for this 1 week. So I'm so glad that you guys came out and saw it. But we did just find out today that we made enough of a splash and an impact that we are extended 1 more week.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, no, that's what we love to hear, because like, again, big supporters of indie horror here. So it's like, in the year that we've had with horror, I mean, like 2022 is going to go down in the books, and it must be so great to have a film that makes that kind of an impact, where it's like, you get to kind of follow in the footsteps of a Terrifier 2 and say, we were there as well, standing side by side, like if we had a kind of a Mount Rushmore of 2022's horror, you'd have like the monster from Barbarian, Ethan Hawke from The Black Phone, Art the Clown, and then the Mean One, all just kind of standing together. It's so cool to see, because they're all just different levels too.
Yeah.
And it just shows really
movie too, right? I mean, it's, they're different kinds of movie, different approaches. I mean, just, I don't know. It's cool. And I think that, there's room at the table for every kind of movie. I told David, I said straight up, you are awesome in Terrifier. It is a cool film. I do not like to watch movies that are that gory. And I think if you watch The Mean One, the fact that it's like Hallmark horror, right? It's, the feel good horror movie of the year for some, whatever the hell that means. I don't know. It's just, there's a room for all of it, right? There's room for movies that are more psychological. I mean, the Black Phone, I thought was really cool, that it was sort of supernatural, but still dealt, with some realistic stuff. So, I mean, I don't know. I think it's great that, there's different kinds of horror and there's room for all of them. I mean, I love it. It's great.
Fantastic. Luke, I'm gonna give you the floor, because I totally hijacked it there for a little bit. So
oh no, you're good. A lot of good stuff already. There's just so many avenues to go down, because this is such a unique film. We talk, obviously we're doing December to Dismember, so we have a huge love for the holiday horror and everything like that. And I know you were just talking about the trailer kind of anticipating being one thing. Is the Mean One real, or is this kind of a different story where maybe it's in the main character's head? And I know going into that film, watching it, you had me a few times where I'm like, oh, she's just dreaming, and then it's kind of like, oh no, this actually happened. So going into that, where we talk about like a horror parody. So you already
Mm-hmm.
have kind of this melding of you've got to, please the horror crowd, there's elements of comedy. Then you do add the suspense element into the storytelling where we kind of really do get this real life story, almost like a, PTSD element that,
Mm-hmm.
we don't normally get in anything like that. So was that kind of a unique balancing act for you to kind of say, I don't want to pay, I have to pay attention to all these different elements and please so many different people? Was that kind of like a strenuous activity, or was it kind of, it was so kind of outlined already that you already knew, okay, we're dedicating this much to here, then here, and it was this perfect equation by the end of it that it wasn't that big of a deal to you?
It was tricky, honestly. It really was, because the I love comedy, and the first movie I made was a comedy. I was like 10 years old and had all my cousins in it and stuff. Darth Vader's like 5 feet, 4 feet, 3 feet. He was tiny, right? He's little. And the comedy's great because you get a reaction out of people, just like horror, right? And I think that when we started this early on, it was important that when working with the writers, Flip and Finn Kobler, that the movie have life, that the characters, we want to see Cindy succeed. We care about them. I didn't want to just make a film with a bunch of cardboard cutouts who just get killed one at a time. I really wanted to focus on Cindy's journey and have her go toe to toe with this monster. So it was tricky. And I will say that one of the ways that we were able to kind of balance it was we did, some table reads, and we did rehearsals to make sure that we felt like, the words sounded good and the tone and the timing was right. But then the other element was there's alternate versions of footage in the film. So there are, versions where maybe I had them play the scene a little bit lighter, or there were versions where, they had a joke that they would, that they said that let's do it without the joke, or let's, try it like this or try it like that. And then in the edit room, we're kind of able to make sure that the tone kind of stays on track. And there were some things that had to get cut. I mean, David is just like, he's a master, right? Every time he would come out, there were moments where he would do things that, like, okay, if we have the kill planned as like a stunt or a gag, okay, that's planned to the T. It's a safety issue. It's a technical thing, whatever. But then there are other moments where, like, the lead up to that kill, he can do whatever he wants. He could dance with the cane. He could, he can be creepy. He can be evil. He can be mischievous. He could be funny, So there are definitely a lot of moments where we had to massage his performance so that tonally it fit. Is it better for him to be smiling, or is it better for him to be angry? And, kind of by he gave us so much that it gave us a lot of options to make sure the movie tonally was what we set out to make, which is this, a feel-good horror film that, that both members of the couple would enjoy, is kind of like my goal.
No, it's definitely a great take.
And just going into, I don't know, an established kind of pop culture iconic. Oh man, I can't say the word.
Iconography.
Thank you, sir. So as we're covering like Silent Night, Deadly Night, and we talked about the original outrage of Santa Claus and this kind of Christmas icon slashing people. Was there any kind of were you intimidated by taking an established pop culture kind of icon and then changing the genre? Was there any hesitation there, or any kind of cause for pushback that you thought maybe would happen?
Definitely. I mean, look, anytime you take something that other people care about, you're going to get some kind of backlash or issue or whatever. And that's why it was important to us that we were true to the story, and that you guys have seen it, so I don't want to spoil anything. It is important to us that we treat the character with respect in terms of the arc and kind of what happens in the movie, maintaining the themes of the story, the themes of forgiveness, the kind of that, it's so hard to like say it without giving away too much.
Understand completely.
You've seen it, but it was just important to us that, we love these characters, and the only downside is because we're trying to tell a story and not show someone a picture that gives everything away. there is a certain element of I'm getting messages from people that are like, oh, you ruined my childhood. Oh, I bet you won't even do this or this or this. And I'm like, oh, you're actually wrong. All three of those things are in the movie. They're just not in the trailer, So there's a certain element. You can't please everybody, of course. And we were concerned when going this route, but we love these characters. We want to respect them and honor them. And, we're not trying to just do some kind of cash grab, just slap the name on it. We really thought this script through. And I hope people, when they see it, it shows that we care about the source material and we want to honor it. And please stop sending me death threats. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't want to go down that route. And, to kind of piggyback off of that, I mean, when you have a concept like the mean one itself, it's like, it is kind of ripe. We've been saying this since the actual story broke that this was coming out, of what you're parodying here. And it is one of those things where it's like that, more so than like something that we're going to be seeing in a few months here, which is the Winnie the Pooh horror film, Blood and Honey. And then they're announcing that there's going to be a Neverland Nightmares. The mean one is the perfect character, we feel, to kind of get that treatment. So it almost surprises me that you'd have, I guess I shouldn't be surprised because it's like, how old is the source material? It's like, God, over 60 years old. Yeah, 60. So, it's one of those things where it's like, I guess there are going to be those people who just don't get it. But, too, I feel like the horror community and, people who like these style of films, it's like, this is so ripe for that kind of treatment. And so it almost surprises me that there would be that kind of backlash. But again, people are people. The internet is what it is. So I guess it's like, you can't really avoid it in any sense of the way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, that's any fandom, right? I mean, I don't love all the Star Wars movies, but I love Star Wars, and like just with the Disney Plus, I mean, there's Mandalorian and Andor could not be more different. They're both Star Wars shows. I happen to love them both. They're great, so I think there's lots of seats at the table, and now that there's more movies and TV shows and content being made than ever, I think it's a great time to, kind of to say, hey, we're Marvel. We're making 10 TV shows. They're all different. And you might have to watch them all to know what's going on, but they're not for everybody. You've got a kids show over here. You've got a scary show over there. You've got a globe-trotting adventure, heist movie, all of these different things. And I think that's cool, personally, but I also don't get offended by TV shows. So
I agree with you. I think that it's nice to cast a wide net. The only issue I've taken recently really with the Marvel stuff is just the keeping up with all of it. It's just been so much that it's almost just like, oh my God, this show's out and now I got to watch this one. And you just like, there's only so much time in a day. And then we're also stuffing horror films into our genre here for our podcast every week. So, one of the, speaking of like classic horror films, I was looking up interviews with you just to kind of prep for this, to kind of get a sense for, we don't want to ask the same questions over and over again. But there was something that you had an interview with Dread Central that caught my attention. You were quoted as saying Gremlins as being your favorite holiday horror film. Do you have a plan in mind if someone were to come up to you and say, hey, we want you to either make a sequel or reboot, your choice, of the Gremlins franchise? And what route would you take that? Would you go darker? Would you go a little bit more in tone? Like, do you kind of have a thought in mind when it comes to that franchise?
Ooh, I feel like there's some movies you just shouldn't touch. Like Back to the Future, you're never going to do better than you're not going to make a better Back to the Future than Back to the Future, right? I love Gremlins. If someone were to present me with the great honor of continuing the Gremlins legacy, I probably would do a continuation because we're just not going to do what's been done better. So I think you would take the concept and apply it to a different environment, or new characters. I don't always think you have to go back to the old characters, and he's grandpa and he's still here. I don't think we need that. Although I did love the ending of the new Ghostbusters. Maybe that's me. They got me with the nostalgia bait, but I'd say we would continue the story for sure. And the two biggest things that I would want to do is I would want to avoid the temptation to make the movie bigger.
Mhm.
right? Like I think that sometimes throwing more money and trying to, go more spectacle can ruin something. I say keep the damn thing small. I love that Batman was a mystery. Like he just he walked around solving crimes. That's all he needs
Mhm.
to do. That's fine. He doesn't need to ice skate. Like just let him solve crimes.
Yeah.
So I'd say I'd keep it small, and I would say we got to do practical gremlins. We just have to
Mhm.
like resist the temptation to do CG gremlins. I think if we can do Baby Yoda and he can be operated with sticks and little balls and stuff, like just take a minute and let's just do the gremlins practically, because they just have such life, and that's what makes it fun to see these things coming in. And yeah, it's silly when a puppet goes into a blender. Like that's what makes it fun. That's what we love about it. Like do it. That's great, and resist the temptation to like, yes, but what if you had 1,000 gremlins? It's like, no. Let's do, a little bit of smoke and KY jelly. We'll make the movie. It'll be great.
That's great to hear, because like that's exactly the same space we're in, where it's like you don't want to put too much CGI in there, and I don't want to see a fully CGI gremlin. If you have to for a couple scenes to do something bombastic, that's fine. But
Right.
like, yeah, no, don't make that your centerpiece, because you have these beautiful designs like Stripe and even Gizmo. I mean, just in the Mogwai format, like everybody saw that movie, and who didn't want Gizmo? As a
Right.
kid, you're just like, man, that would go horribly wrong in my household, just knowing me as a child. But
Right.
it's one of those things where it's like I want Gizmo. Like you just want to have him, take care of
Mhm.
him be your little buddy.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, and look, there's a place for VFX. There's some things that would be impossible without the VFX, right? And even in our film, I know there's some people who aren't fans of the VFX, like the 3D blood and stuff that we did, but it's a joke. Like it's supposed to be silly and cartoonish and ridiculous. Like if you're in a room laughing with people and a tree is, spoiler alert, is spraying like this outrageous amount of like digital blood, like I think that's funny. That's funny to me, so, but I think there's a time and a place for everything. And Yoda in the prequels. Sorry, I'm a big Star Wars fan. Yoda in the prequels
Absolutely fine.
versus Yoda in the Last Jedi. Like that's a puppet. It looks awesome. Like some things we can improve upon it, but maybe use VFX to like remove the stick. Don't go. I'm sorry. I've gone on
No,
a rant.
you're fine. No, I completely get it. And that was actually I know you said you didn't watch our review, but I will be honest, that was one of the criticisms I threw at the movie, was the
Mhm.
CGI blood. Just
Mhm.
because coming off of the year that we've had with things like Terrifier and all that practical
Mhm.
effects and everything, I was ready to see that, and I was a little put off. But honestly, talking with you here and kind of understanding more of the intent and kind of the way against how the film was marketed, it's one of those things where it's like I am a little more forgiving of that, because I now I think I'm a little more in with the joke a little bit more, because before it's like I think I was so excited for this that I built up so many expectations of like it's gonna be gory, it's gonna be ripping out guts and stuff, but like when I saw it I was just a little put off by it.
Mhm.
But now that I completely I kind of think you flipped me on that, in a sense of just being like, okay, no, I think I need to take a step back and just give this a watch through, just seeing what the intent was, as this is more parody. Because again, like I said, when this was announced, I mean, Luke and I both were like, great, sorry, the mean one,
Good man.
uh, coming down, doing his thing. That is 100% the movie I want to see him in, a horror flick. Luke.
Yeah. I mean, look, I appreciate you saying that. And that's has been kind of the interesting thing too, to like see people's reactions and watch it at screenings and then talk to other people. Yeah. If you expect, Terrifier level gore, which is a feat unto itself. And you could totally tell they spent, because it's like, it's art. It's incredible. Pun intended. It's incredible to see what they did. But something that we really strove for was to make some of a film that was light, and that was a fun holiday watch, and I think that some of our creative choices in not showing a knife hitting the guy in the head, not showing some of these like really brutal things, were to try to keep it a little bit lighter, and make it fun and make it something that like a group could watch together and not be like, oh, geez, what are they showing us,
Mhm.
But yeah, if you're expecting something different, I could totally see why you'd see that blood and be like, why didn't they just get a hose and an air compressor? I'm like, we got it. We didn't want to do, like, we're trying to make something different,
Understood. But yeah, Luke, go ahead and you could take the floor again. I feel like I'm hijacking this so
Oh
much.
no, it's totally fine. It's a great interview. Whereas, we're talking about the mean one, we're talking about, we just seen Terrifier 2 a few months
Mhm.
ago, and where, you're mentioning the CGI blood, and kind of, I think that adds maybe a little zany quality to the film, kind of, like you said, like a more lightheartedness,
Mhm.
not so gory as something like Terrify. And I think that kind of speaks to the volumes of just how diverse horror can be, and all the different subgenres that accompany the umbrella of horror. And I know, obviously, we look at the mean one, and I think I can say that be defined as some sort of creature feature. I
Mhm.
would say.
Yeah.
And then we've just expressed your love for Gremlins as well. Is that something where, would that be your preferred subgenre in the horror kind of umbrella here, or is there something else that's, if given the opportunity, say someone said, let's make the next brainchild here.
Mhm.
What would we be kind of maybe in store for?
It would definitely be a creature feature for sure. I mean, I've always been a bigger fan of like the iconic movie monsters, like the Mummy, the Wolf Man. Oh, I've always wanted to do a wolf movie. I have a treatment for like werewolves, and the writer was like, was telling me a little bit about it, and it's a genre mashup, and I said, well, what kind of wolf are we talking about? Is it a werewolf? Is it a lichen? Is it a wolf man? And he was like, I didn't realize there was a difference. I'm like, oh, there's a difference.
You were on the
There's a big
right show,
difference.
sir,
I'm
because we
like, oh,
are we
there's
are
a
massive
difference.
werewolf fans, so we get exactly what you're saying there.
Yeah, I'm like, there's a difference. Are we talking dog soldiers? Are we talking underworld? Are we talking Wolfman? Which one? Like, I'm that's so it would definitely be a creature feature because the haunted houses are fun, and I love when there's a haunting that has logic to it, like the Conjurings. By the end of the film, it always makes sense why they're being, well, the earlier ones anyway. It always makes more sense. It makes sense why they're being haunted and by what. There's logic to it, right? Even in Insidious, I love the first two Insidious. The haunting makes total sense. There's a script. There's like a really solid plot. But those creatures aren't things you can kind of hang your hat on, right? Whereas like
Mhm.
the Mummy's got all kinds of powers. When he rolls up, you should be scared. And because there's like elements of the creature that extend into the real world, you can have scarabs in the Mummy movie. He didn't do that. It's not the Mummy, but there's flesh-eating monsters in this. He's got plagues he can do. Like a werewolf bites you, and now you're transforming. Maybe it's an unwilling thing. So I mean, I don't know. I think that it would definitely be a creature feature because I'm not a huge like knife wielding masked killer guy. Like I want to see like a really cool design. I want something I can get an action figure of because I'm like 12. So it would
Hey,
definitely be a creature feature.
I mean, we feel you right there. I mean, we collect all our NECAs and everything. Werewolves have a huge spot on this channel for us. It was our first kind of reboot episode because we started this in the pandemic years ago,
Mhm.
kind of let it go. And then we kind of came back last March, really taking a stab at the whole podcasting YouTube thing. And yeah, we started off with a big werewolf podcast, just talking about our favorite werewolf flicks and just kind of where they lie.
Mhm.
And I mean, we ourselves, we have werewolf content that we are working on and, hopefully going to get the chance to make one day, just because they are just such an underappreciated creature, I feel like. Which I got to ask, everybody needs to know, what's your favorite werewolf film then?
Oh, definitely Dog Soldiers.
Awesome. We just covered that a couple months ago.
I saw, and I was like,
That
I put that on my save for later. Like it's
Thank you. That means so
Appreciate it.
much because yeah, that was one that like we went into kind of like the minutia of that movie and we're like
Mhm.
seeing all the production and kind of how long it took to get together and everything. Like if you go back into the making of that movie, man, it is crazy.
I mean, it's a
And
complicated film. I mean,
mhm,
it's anytime you do one creature, it's a challenge. When you do one creature against a human, it's a challenge, but it's fine. You add multiple creatures and you add guys with guns, and like just once you actionify anything, I mean, it's like, oh my God, how do you make Alien more complicated? Aliens, oh my God, and add Space Marines. Like, oh, what? Like, yeah, Dog Soldiers, they really swung for the fences on that one.
Yeah, and I think it still stands the test of time. We just got the 4K a couple months back when it came out. It just looks better than it ever has.
I was gonna
Uh,
say, because it's kind of a noisy movie, right? When you see it,
mhm,
it's like it feels very, I don't want to say low budget, but it's a throwback. So it's got a, it's film, it's night, it's
mhm.
dark, But yeah, Dog Soldiers, man. Woo.
And before I throw it back over to Luke real quick, I got to ask, biped or four-legged? What are you choosing for your werewolf flick?
Oh, well, I'd probably biped because
Mm,
you can just do more. Because if it's you go with a wolf that, I mean, when they run, they always become four-legged, but
mhm,
it's got to be bipedal because then they can slash, then you've
mhm.
got hands to contend with. And, I like my werewolves big. I mean, I like lichens really. So I want them big and tall, long hands. And I think you can just do more with that because I've got this vision of a, a stagecoach and a shotgun wielding woman firing at, these lichens as they're charging after her with dust in the background and the moon in the sky. Like, you can't do that if they're, if you don't give them all the toys. You got to give them all the toys, let them do all the stuff.
Understand. But go right on ahead, Luke. I'm sorry I cut you off again.
Oh no. Yeah, Dylan.
Shutting them down.
Unbelievable.
Shutting them down.
Ridiculous. I know we were talking about dog soldiers and kind of the muddled mess, in terms of the prints of that film and in the 4K version that had come out. Looking at like the mean one and this getting a theatrical release like it did. I mean, was that something where this started as a grain of an idea and then it's like, okay, we get to actually make this, and then it
Mhm.
becomes, oh wait, this is actually going to have a theatrical release. Was that something that even was the goal going into this, or was just this kind of like, um, uh, maybe streaming will pick this up or something along those lines, or at a time where it was straight to DVD, things like
Mhm.
that. Now we're here. Terrifier's doing huge numbers in the theater. Now we just had the mean one. We're getting a lot of smaller films that are hitting the theater. Was that a huge accomplishment for you? And when that news happened, I mean, how does that go down? Is that like, hey, by the way, your film is going to be showing in theaters?
Well, I mean, it's you always set out to make something cinematic, right? And the streaming deliverables are pretty high. Like they ask you for stuff that no one ever needs. Like Netflix, it's all very public what Netflix needs, right? Same goes for Amazon. Like it's pretty standard what they all expect from you. Certain kind of cameras they want you to use, certain kind of sound mix they want you to have, a final deliverable, whatever. So um, we do a lot of our own post in house. So delivering high quality deliverables that could be streaming ready, I wasn't worried about that. But I mean, we knew it would screen on a big screen sometimes, but as its first foray out, no, we were. That's definitely we were not like we're like, oh my god, I got to revisit the sound mix. It's going to be loud as hell, like that's it was big news, and I think a lot of it comes back to the temptation can be on a low budget endeavor to think that your thing doesn't matter, right? Who's going to care? Who's going to watch it? There's no, comic book associated with it. There's no, oh, my thing it's just made by me and the people I know. We make commercials together. We play pool together. Like how, who's going to want to watch this thing? And one of the things I established really early on when I started bringing people onto this project, I said, guys, we got to treat this like a Marvel thing. No pictures of the monster. You can't post them online. No talking about the script. And we have to shoot this like it's going to go big, because if not, when the movie goes big, if the movie goes big, we're all going to have egg on our face because we thought, well, no one's ever going to see it. And thankfully, kind of going that route, everyone brought it, and that was very, very happy. But then as these things start to happen and the film starts to grow beyond even what we expected for it, you get sort of this validation, but also you're ready, right? You're not, you don't want to shoot the horse in the stable before it even runs the race. Like, give your movie a shot. So it definitely went bigger than we thought, but we were more or less ready when the time came, because it did come at the 11th hour of like, hey, this thing's tracking really well. We're thinking of pivoting from a streaming release to a theatrical. And even then I thought, oh, well, maybe it'll be, The Whale is in 6 theaters this weekend. They'll start really, 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 really small. and see where it goes 1 week only. Now we're coming up on our second week, which is amazing. We're in 150 theaters. Oh my God. Like in almost every country, almost every state. It's a dream come true. And it's a wild ride because it changes minute by minute, day by day. I'm getting box office numbers for a movie I directed. Like, are you kidding? It's wild.
I'm sure that's a surreal experience.
It's crazy. And I do go, we have, they do special events out here. I'm in Los Angeles. They do special events where we go to screenings and, we talk to people after and give out posters and stuff. David's gone to a couple of them. My fiance, Mayor McBean, she goes and she has stickers and stuff. And, but sometimes, typically I don't do like some kind of intro. I just kind of go and I sit in the back. It's fun to sit in there and see people I don't know laughing at the movie. And, when they get it and they're picking up on it. It's not fun when people get up and leave. And then I have to keep track in my head of like, okay, did they leave? Did they walk out of the film? Did they just go to the bathroom? They come back with popcorn. I'm like, okay, that's good. I'm not at all stressed about it, but, but it's cool. Yeah. It's a wild experience, and the credits roll and people cheer. And I'm like, oh, you have no idea. I'm right here. Oh, thank you.
I love that.
And that's where it's like, it's interesting because, obviously we're in tune with social media and Twitter and all this stuff. And you can kind of be closed off into a group of, people you only talk to online, you at them, and that's really it. Whereas, Dylan and I, when we had heard that the Mean One was coming to the theaters, we weren't sure if being in Ohio that anything was going to come of it. If we were prepared to drive as far as we had to go see it if we had the opportunity. And then, it's like, oh, it's an hour away, which, in our book was an easy drive because it's like, well, we were going to drive in 2 hours to go see this movie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we had pretty high aspirations. Like,
oh wow, great. Oh, I hope the movie lived up to your expectations. That's a lot of put an hour driving each way. Oh boy.
No, totally. And it's like one of those things where I guess what I'm getting at here is like even seeing like something like Terrifier 2, where you talk to these people online that love the horror community. We have these small films that we all love, and now that the Mean One, Terrifier, all these got small release like theatrical releases, and then we actually get to go there and you see a theater that is almost filled, and then the outside conversations it generates even after the credits roll and people are standing outside and they're talking about this scene, that scene, and did you catch this reference, or every little thing, all the nooks and crannies of this film. And I think that's kind of the beauty of what this is bringing into real life, where it's like a lot of people that were there that night, from our perspective, most of them weren't from the city. They had to drive in to actually see this film. And I think that's the beauty of this, where Terrifier, the Mean One, where it's bringing the connection, where it's like now you're putting faces to the ads. You're actually being able to see these people and share an experience where sometimes that gets lost. Now it's like, I love streaming, I love being able to flip on Shudder and watch something at my leisure, but nothing beats that theatrical experience of being able to, it's a kinship, you know what I mean? Where it's like, I'm sitting next to someone that is also in the know, so I think that really brought a nice beauty to, a little poetic, to actually seeing this in the theater.
That's great. You said there were, there's a bunch of people in the theater where you saw it?
Yes. Yeah. It was, I want to say almost sold out, or
I think
just
got
to, because there
were only a few seats. I think last time, because we were checking on as we were going up to see, and we bought it. Like, I think there were two seats already taken. So then we kind of had to pick, and then Dylan was like, I didn't even check it before, we had left. And I was like, oh, I'll see. And then I flipped it on, and it's like, it was almost sold out. It was like only a couple left.
Wow,
so.
that's super cool.
I want to say that front row that nobody ever really likes to be in was the only thing that had a couple in there. But yeah, no, man, it was a packed house, and it was an energetic theater for sure.
I was going to say they had fun. People laughed. They had a good time.
Oh, yeah.
I wasn't there. I'll never know.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, it was definitely one of those things where it's like, I think for the majority of the film, like, there were moments where you could tell, like, some people were like, they knew what they were getting into, because they were just like, okay, yeah, this is this. But then you could tell there were some people that were like, okay, my friend's been hyping this up. I'm coming in, and they're just like, dude, what is this? Like, what am I
Yeah.
watching right now?
Yep.
I'm watching the mean one like hack these people up in this bar. Like, this is wild. And it was definitely one of those things where it was like it's an experience in and of itself. It's one of those, we like to talk about it, where it's like we were expecting to have to drive a couple hours to go see it. But we always know that it's like, whether we come out and we like it or not, it's still an experience that's going to stick in our mind. And, like Luke said, you never can beat that communal theatrical experience. And I think that, honestly, that is another reason why I think this is such a big deal for this film to be in theaters, and that it got the ability to do that. Because, I can think of just a few years ago, and I want to say pre-pandemic, where that probably would have been a lot harder to get something like this there. But now that horror is kind of, having this resurgence and being able to kind of, say, hey, people are kind of getting a little sick of the Marvel stuff and the superhero stuff. So maybe it's time to do something new. And maybe films like The Mean One and Terrifier 2, they kind of seem to be hitting the spot for people. So I'm really excited to see what comes next. So one of my final questions, because I know we don't want to keep you too much longer. I'm sure you're very busy with all the stuff you got going on.
Appreciate that.
Do you, and if you haven't seen the film, obviously, you might want to skip a couple minutes here, because I'm not doing a direct spoiler, but there is a line towards the end of this film. And I was curious about it. Are there any plans for a possible return for the Mean One to Newville?
That's a very good question. Okay, so my fiance / producing partner is looking at me like the answer is no. So I'm gonna say no. There are no plans for a sequel.
Okay, all right.
But if there were, they would be crazy, and they would be numerous, and it would improve upon every single thing that making a movie in 6 months forces you to cut and change. Because we shot the movie in May, and it was out in December.
That's wild.
Yeah, which is nuts. And I haven't slept. I just don't sleep. That's it. I haven't slept. Here we are. So the answer is no. I have no formal plan for a sequel, but if I did it would be crazy.
Okay. Well, I think that about wraps us up here. Thank you so much, Stephen. We really appreciate you taking the time to sit down with us here, man. Answer all our crazy, silly questions. It's so rare that we get to actually talk to somebody who's this deep into the industry, as far as just like indie filmmaking. You're on set, you're boots on the ground, as they like to say, really making these things come to life. And I really appreciate you giving us the time.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And, obviously, if you want to plug anything, I know, is the film still going to be hitting streaming this month? Is that still on the table, or is it going to?
No, we're going to have to wait a little longer for the streaming. The theatrical went so well that now that we're getting extended, it's like the Wild West. We have no clue what's going to happen next. You're like the third person to find out, because this was like an hour before we started recording. So depending on when this drops, who knows, it'll be public knowledge, but no, the streaming is going to have to wait a little bit, because now we're making a run for Christmas. That was always the goal, was like, we want to be around. The Mean One needs to be in town for Christmas. Right.
Yeah.
And it's a week by week thing here. If people get out and they see it, and if they like it and they tell their friends, hey, we got to get a group together, have a couple of beers and go see it. Like, that's the thing that helps us be around for Christmas. And I think that streaming is fun, but I don't know. It's so cool to sit in a room and laugh and joke and watch, somebody die or hear some of the zing, the silly one-liners, and have people like chuckle. I don't know. I think I would much prefer to do that just a little bit longer than the streaming. So
absolutely.
The only thing I would plug is The Mean One, which is in theaters now. And this weekend we're going up against Avatar, which is a sentence I never thought I'd say. Support indie horror. Come out, get your friends together, see the movie, have a laugh. Don't take it too seriously. And let's get The Mean One to Christmas.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, sir. We really appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you, guys. And if you finish a script or you got something you want me to take a look at, shoot it my way. I love reading new stuff.
Oh, thank you so much. That would be amazing.
All right. Take it easy, guys.
You too. Thank you. All righty. So that is going to wrap up our interview with Stephen Lamorte. Just wonderful, again, great interview, fantastic guy, really generous with his time. Seriously, letting us pick his brain
Absolutely.
for close to an hour there. We got a lot of great tidbits, some exclusives, I must say, with them not dropping it on streaming as soon as we all thought. That it getting its theatrical run extended. That's all really cool stuff. I mean, you guys heard it if you listen through the whole thing. We're talking Terrifier 2 and just the crazy business that film did, and just seeing this one kind of following its footsteps. It's wonderful to see indie horror really take center stage this year.
Yeah, and this is another one where, we went and saw it, weren't really sure how we felt about it, but now it's like looking at it, getting some things to chew on from the man himself. It is one of those ones that maybe we have to maybe give a reappraisal to, and because we're gonna pick up on things. And there was definitely a deeper story here. You could tell that he had a real passion for it, and kind of wanted to intertwine a lot of different storytelling techniques and almost genres, and kind of just meld them all together, which, looking back on it, it does look like he was fairly successful in kind of, pleasing a lot of masters there. So I'm intrigued to go back and revisit this one. I would love to see this get a physical release. That's one thing we didn't ask him about. I was
Yeah,
intriguing about, just because, again, he's a horror guy through and through. He talks about practical effects. He's got a love for the nostalgia aspect of, the 80s horror and stuff like that. So I'm intrigued to see if he's gonna fight for a physical release for this one. It's such a rarity nowadays.
yeah, and I mean, if you guys saw our review, you kind of know that like our stance on it was that we kind of went in expecting one thing, and it really wasn't that. It was, as he said in the interview, more of that lighthearted horror, kind of a Hallmark film. And we went in obviously looking for something that was a lot of blood and guts, and a lot of just the mean one being as mean as he possibly could be. So it is something where it's like it is nice to hear from the creatives themselves and a little bit more of their you know what they thought of the film. And he even says, we mention it because he told us right up front that he didn't watch our review. He's is a creative, he stays away from reviews, which I totally respect that. In today's day and age, you get that. So it is something where it's just kind of humbling for him to not even know what our criticisms were, but to just kind of be able to have these questions. So that's how you can kind of tell that he's not just saying that to make us feel better about it. You know what I mean? He's actually being genuine and saying these are the thoughts and things. And he understands we weren't alone in our thoughts on the film. But yeah, I don't know. It could just be shell shock, could be starstruck. But it is one of those things where it's like I think just sitting down and talking to him for an hour, I can tell you that you're right, Luke. He does have a lot of passion, and it was nice to talk about not only this film but werewolf films and gremlins and all that other crazy stuff that we love talking about on this channel, and just really seeing what this man could do. I want to see him get a bigger budget, and I do want to see the mean one come back to theaters with a little more money and maybe a little more time on his hands. I want to see what he can do.
I think it'll be really intriguing.
Absolutely. But all right, guys, that's going to wrap us up here for our exclusive interview, kicking off December to Dismember. Again, this was quite a surprise. This really came together rather quick, but we were happy to do it and hope that you guys enjoyed it. As always, you can follow us on our social media at Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at SplatterCastPod, as well as, again, if you are just coming across this channel and you have not yet subscribed, hit that subscribe button. We are on our way to 1,000 subscribers as we speak. It's been a really great run for us so far. You guys have been awesome and really responsive to everything we've been doing, and we just love making the content for you. And we got a lot of good stuff on our way right now, as well as previous videos. We got a review for Christmas Bloody Christmas, which is another great Christmas holiday horror film that we quite enjoyed. And as well, check out our review for The Mean One. And you guys can definitely get our thoughts there. Again, if you're seeing this first, maybe it deserves a reappraisal from us. I don't know. We'll have to see. But Luke, you're absolutely right. I do want to see a physical copy of this. It was on the tip of my tongue, but I didn't want to take anything more from him there. You already gave so much, so I might follow up with that in an email thanking the gentleman and see what he says. So we'll have to touch base on that. But until next time, guys, I am Dylan Knoll.
And I'm Luke Janesco.
And remember, stay scared.